Arjun Malhotra had the money, the mansion, and the perfect wife, but one reckless affair with a single mom named Emily Carter turned his life into a ticking time bomb of lust, lies, and revenge. When Emily was found strangled with Meera Malhotra's designer scarf on the night of their wedding anniversary, the illusion of a perfect marriage shattered and a shocking truth began to unravel, proving that sometimes the deadliest betrayals come from the person sleeping right beside you. Arjun Malhotra was the kind of man everyone in Silicon Valley knew by name, the Indian tech genius who turned a small startup into a billion-dollar empire. At 46, he had everything most people dream of: a glass mansion overlooking the bay, luxury cars lined up in the driveway, and a wife who looked like she walked out of a lifestyle magazine. Together, they were the perfect power couple, the type that made headlines for their success, not their scandals. But what the world saw wasn't the full story. Behind the marble walls of their home, silence had replaced warmth. The marriage that once burned with passion had turned into a cold business partnership. Mira spent her days managing her women's foundation, posting pictures of luxury dinners, while Argent drowned himself in work and whiskey. He was restless, bored, and craving something that reminded him he was still alive. His life had become predictable, rehearsed, and empty of excitement. Friends told him he was just going through a midlife slump, but it felt deeper than that. He wanted something unplanned, something dangerous that didn't fit neatly into his carefully curated life. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about feeling wanted, feeling seen. He started staying longer at his offices downtown, taking meetings he didn't need, and driving around aimlessly at night just to escape the mansion that now felt like a prison. Mira noticed, of course, but she didn't confront him. She had her own way of maintaining control by acting like nothing was wrong. Arjun didn't know it yet, but the emptiness he was trying to fill would soon drag him into a web of passion, deceit, and death that would destroy everything he'd built. Emily Carter entered Arjun's life on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day he usually spent buried in spreadsheets and phone calls. She was hired to redesign one of his luxury rental properties, a young interior designer with a messy ponytail, ripped jeans, and a confidence that instantly threw him off balance. Emily wasn't intimidated by his status or his money. She spoke to him like he was just another client, cracking jokes and challenging his opinions. That was new for Arjun. Everyone around him usually said yes to everything he wanted, but Emily didn't. She was bold, spontaneous, and unfiltered, exactly the kind of energy his life was missing. He learned that she was 29, a single mom to a 6-year-old boy named Liam, working hard to keep her small business afloat after walking away from a toxic relationship. The more she talked, the more he listened, fascinated by her honesty and strength. Their conversations shifted from color palettes and furniture to late-night texts and inside jokes. Arjun told himself it was harmless, just two people connecting, but he couldn't ignore the pull. One evening after a project meeting, he offered her a ride home. She accepted, and that short drive changed everything. What began as small talk turned into stolen glances and lingering silences until temptation finally won. The affair started in secret hotel rooms and evolved into something deeper. Arjun found himself addicted to her laughter, her chaos, her fire. For Emily, Arjun was stability, a man who made her feel safe after years of struggle. But she carried shadows from her past too. Her ex-boyfriend Jake wasn't done with her. He still called, still threatened, still showed up uninvited. Emily tried to keep that part of her life hidden, unaware that her secrets were the first spark in a fire neither she nor Arjun could control. The affair between Arjun and Emily quickly spun out of control, a dangerous mix of thrill and guilt that neither of them could resist. What started as secret texts and rushed hotel meetings turned into an obsession that consumed them both. Arjun began finding excuses to leave home, claiming late-night business calls or urgent client dinners. Emily, now used to his attention and expensive surprises, started depending on him more than she wanted to admit. He bought her a sleek apartment in the city, a brand new SUV, and even paid for her son's private school tuition. It was his way of keeping her close, but also of easing his own guilt. He told himself it was love, but deep down it was control. Mira noticed the changes, the missed family dinners, the new cologne, the constant distraction, and she wasn't the kind of woman to ignore signs of betrayal. Without a word to Arjun, she hired a private investigator. Within a week, she had everything: photos of Arjun kissing Emily outside her apartment, receipts for gifts, and even text logs from his second phone. When she confronted him, he denied it at first, then begged for forgiveness, promising to end things. But he couldn't. Emily had become his escape, and letting her go felt impossible. What he didn't realize was that Emily had started playing her own game. She began recording their phone calls and saving screenshots of messages insurance in case things went bad. When Arjun tried to pull away, Emily hinted she might tell Meera everything. The same woman who once seemed innocent now had leverage, and she wasn't afraid to use it. Arjun's world, once spotless and perfectly controlled, was now built on lies stacked like cards ready to collapse at the slightest touch. When their 16th wedding anniversary approached, Meera decided to host an extravagant celebration at their Napa Valley mansion, hoping to restore the image of a perfect marriage. The guest list was packed with CEOs, politicians, and media influencers, everyone who mattered in their social circle. Arjun hated every second of it. To him, the party felt like a trap, a performance staged to convince the world their marriage was still intact. He tried to focus, but his mind was somewhere else on Emily. The affair had grown toxic and unpredictable, filled with fights, jealousy, and threats. That morning, Emily sent him a text that made his stomach twist. "If you won't tell her, I will." She had grown tired of being hidden, tired of the lies. Arjun panicked. If Meera found out in public, it would destroy him, his career, his family, his reputation. He called Emily over and over, begging her not to do anything stupid. Finally, she agreed to meet him privately at a quiet winery outside town just hours before the anniversary event. Witnesses later recalled seeing them arguing near her black sedan, Emily waving her hands angrily while Arjun tried to calm her down. No one knew what was said, but Emily drove off in tears. Arjun arrived late to the party, pale and distracted, trying to act normal as photographers snapped pictures of him holding Mira's hand. The night went on with toasts and laughter, but Arjun barely touched his drink. Around midnight, a jogger passing through a vineyard found Emily's car parked off the road. She was slumped over the steering wheel, a silk scarf knotted tightly around her neck. The scarf was identified as one of Mira's, a luxury designer brand only available in Europe. A gift she had given Arjun on his last birthday. The investigation into Emily Carter's death exploded across local news before sunrise. Reporters swarmed the winery, helicopters hovered overhead, and detectives sealed off the scene. The cause of death was obvious: strangulation, but the real shock came when the scarf used to kill her was linked back to Meera Malhotra's private collection. His fingerprints were all over Emily's car, his DNA found on her scarf, and his text messages painted him as a desperate man trying to silence his mistress. He was brought in for questioning, his confident facade shattered as detectives grilled him for hours. Arjun swore he hadn't hurt her, claiming he left Emily alive after their argument. His story sounded hollow, like every other cheating husband trying to dodge responsibility. Meera, on the other hand, played the grieving wife flawlessly. She showed up to the police station in tears, supporting her husband publicly while whispering doubts privately. To the world, she was the picture of heartbreak. Behind closed doors, Detective Laura Briggs, a sharp, no-nonsense investigator, wasn't convinced. Something about Mira's composure felt rehearsed. Then came another curveball: Jake Wilson, Emily's volatile ex, became a suspect when his fingerprints were discovered on her purse. But Jake's alibi checked out through security footage showing him drunk at a bar miles away at the time of the murder. The evidence seemed to scream Arjun's guilt, but Laura couldn't shake the feeling that someone had carefully crafted the scene to make it look that way. Small inconsistencies kept bothering her: the perfume scent on the scarf didn't match Emily's, and the fingerprints inside the car's glove compartment belonged to an unknown female. The deeper Laura dug, the more it looked like this wasn't a crime of passion, but a perfectly executed setup designed to destroy Arjun's life from the inside out. It became clear that Meera hadn't just known about the affair, she had orchestrated every piece of the revenge that followed. For months, she'd been quietly gathering information, following Emily's movements, and waiting for the perfect opportunity. The day of the anniversary, Meera used Arjun's burner phone to text Emily, pretending to be him. She lured her to the winery with a message that promised a final goodbye and closure. When Emily arrived expecting Arjun, Meera was waiting. The confrontation started as a verbal attack, but rage took over. The betrayal, humiliation, and public embarrassment had boiled inside Meera for months, and when Emily tried to walk away, Meera snapped. She grabbed one of her silk scarves from her purse and wrapped it around Emily's neck in a blind fury. When it was over, panic set in. She dragged Emily's body to the car, wiped down the surfaces, and planted small pieces of Arjun's belongings a cufflink. His DNA from a used handkerchief to make it look like a lover's quarrel turned fatal. Hours later, Mira calmly returned home, changed into her designer gown, and hosted the anniversary party with a glass of champagne in her hand, smiling for photos as if nothing had happened. Every move she made was deliberate, flawless, and fueled by vengeance disguised as elegance. Arjun's world came crashing down in the weeks following Emily's death. His empire collapsed overnight as investors pulled out, the media labeled him a murderer, and his once loyal staff distanced themselves. The scandal consumed every news channel, turning the Malhotras from a symbol of success into the center of a nationwide spectacle. Arjun was released on bail, but his reputation was in ruins. Mira, on the other hand, continued her performance as the heartbroken wife, gaining sympathy from the public while secretly enjoying her victory. Detective Laura Briggs, however, wasn't ready to close the case. She kept studying every detail, convinced that something about Mira didn't add up. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly. A guest at the anniversary party posted a photo from that night showing Mira wearing a diamond bracelet with a broken clasp. Forensics had found matching fiber traces from that bracelet inside Emily's car. It was the missing piece Laura needed. When confronted with the evidence, Mira's polished faud cracked for the first time. Her confident posture collapsed into trembling rage as she admitted everything. She confessed that she couldn't stand the humiliation of Arjun's affair and had planned the entire setup to destroy him emotionally and professionally. In her mind, it wasn't murder. It was justice. The courtroom was packed the day of her sentencing. Mira stood in silence as the judge delivered a life sentence without parole, her expression eerily calm. Arjun, cleared of murder but stripped of everything, walked out of the courthouse a free man with nothing left, not his company, not his wealth, not his family. The story became one of America's most infamous true crime cases. A chilling reminder that behind every perfect marriage photo lies a reality that can shatter in a heartbeat. And sometimes the most dangerous place to be is sleeping next to someone who feels betrayed.